I am honored to be up here and introduce these panel members. For many of you that know, some of you that don't, I'm in recovery myself. And it wasn't even 10 years ago that I was being arrested and put into the jail for drug charges. So I love the fact that we can stand up here and show that with the right support and the right community assistance programs or anything that you can reach out for help to get, that we can recover and we can change our lives. I think one of the most important things that I hear all the time, and I share on Facebook all the time, is that when we recover out loud, there's less people that suffer in silence. And I think that that's so true. So I'm honored to be up here to introduce our panel members. Our first speaker, we have Dennis Morgan.
I'm standing up because I'm a little nervous. Is that good?
Yep.
In the microphone? So I was trying to think, what am I going to talk about? Because I'm in the field now and I'm in recovery and all of this stuff. So I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. A little bit of everything. So I am a person in recovery. That's how I choose to say that now. I got clean in 12-step programs, so I would be a recovering addict or a recovering alcoholic. Whatever you want to say, I choose to say person in recovery. I'm going to say a little bit about what it was like, because I think that's important. So I was born into a household with parents that were active drug addicts and drug dealers, and was born with a cleft palate and hair lip, and most of my childhood was a little not so nice. You know, there was a lot of physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and bullying because of the hair lip. So I learned at a very early age that I just eat the pain, don't say anything to anybody, and try to be perfect, because if I'm perfect, then maybe you'll love me. And that was how it started. And I shut down really, really, really early in my life. It was weird. I got sent to live with my grandparents, and once they got sober, or clean, whatever word you're using, life actually got pretty normal. I never lost the bad messages that I learned, though. So I spent most of my life trying to be perfect so that people would accept me. And it came in handy. I want to cover both ends of the spectrum. So I did really well in high school because I was trying to be perfect, and I got a scholarship to college, and I was president of the Honor Society, and I was this and I was that. And on the outside, everything appeared really good. And on the inside, I was, or I felt, different than everybody, and just not sure, hiding a lot about myself because I didn't think anybody would accept me. And I went through most of my life not wanting to be my parents because I hated them, honestly, at that point in my life. I don't anymore. That said, I got towards the end of high school and the beginning of college, and I just was like, the people that are using look like they're having a lot of fun. And I didn't feel like I was having fun, and I wanted to try it. And in the beginning, it was fun, but honestly, for me, really quickly, it wasn't fun anymore. I didn't see the need to drink unless you were going to black out, because what's the purpose of drink? I thought the purpose of using any substance was to stop feeling the pain that I was in. I just thought that that's why people drank. I didn't think it was pleasurable at all. I just didn't want to feel what I was feeling, and I needed something to help me do that. And I consider myself a late recoverer or whatever. So I went from probably 20 years old to 50 years old, in and out of the rooms of AA, NA, other places. Importantly, in and out of jails. I've probably been in, I don't know, there's Oswego County, Onondaga County, Dutchess County, Ulster County, I don't know, and probably in jail 30 or 40 times. So I think that's important to Yes, I had all this good stuff when I was younger. I was also in addiction or active use, the manager of financial planning for a Fortune 500 company. So we can be both. We are both, or at least I am. And was just all over the place. And I used, every time I used, it was to not feel, and I used until you caught me and I was going to jail. And there was no social use for me. It was nothing about that. And I was never really willing. I thought that I was going to stop using and that everything would get better and that I didn't have to change anything. I'm speaking for me because I'm a big proponent of everybody has a different recovery and everybody can choose what they want to do, how they get to do it. And I help people do that now, so it's very cool. Fast forwarding, the last time I was in jail, it was in Dutchess County, and they have or had an amazing program in there that you get to go to groups all day with social workers and CASACs and peers, and you just have access to them 24/7 while you're in jail, which is cool. And I met this lady, and she's not here, I'm sure, Lauren Olson, and she asked me who did I respect most in my life? And my answer was my friend's father growing up, Mr. Mateer. I'll always remember him because it was somebody that I wish my family was like. And she said, "Are you like him when you use drugs?" And I thought that was stupid. The answer was no. And then she said, "Are you like him when you don't use drugs?" And for whatever reason, at that point in my life, I was able to be honest with myself, and the answer was still no. And I went back to my cell, and I was messed up, and I was like, how am I ever going to be happy if I don't respect myself? I probably should have learned that lesson a long time ago, but at that point, it made me willing to do the stuff that I was not willing to do before, because I did not want to go the rest of my life not respecting myself. And that's where it started for me. I met a peer that was in jail that told me that I was going to not do my accounting anymore. I was going to be a peer. And I was like, yeah, right. And long story short, he met me the day I came out of prison. He got me a scholarship to Samadhi. David McNamara gave me a scholarship, put me through class, and I choose for myself to believe that God, who is my higher power, however you want to word it, put people in my life that just have held my hand. Because when I was in jail, before I met that lady, I was hopeless. I was okay with either dying on the street, or I thought maybe I would be lucky enough to maybe push a shopping cart and collect cans, and I was okay with it. I was like, yep, as long as I can still use, that's fine. And I had no hope, and I hated myself. And little by little, I'm just going to mention some important people, because I was incapable of having a relationship with anybody. I didn't care about anybody, most of all myself. I cared about crack and a stem, and that's all I cared about. And God help me, including my wife. I was fortunate enough to marry somebody that's now 30 years in recovery, and I didn't care about her. I was a horrible husband, a horrible son, and those were the things that motivated me to change. And as I've gone through the journey, you know, it was to me it's weird, because I didn't see anything lovable in myself. So David gave me the scholarship. I met Julia Reichel, who came to interview me for a job, and I'm like, what the hell would anybody hire me for? And on the same interview was Alicia Griffin, and I'm going to start crying. So I've developed these relationships, and I choose to practice abstinence. I haven't had the desire to use in quite a while. Okay. So, and now I work in the field. So I've developed, so Alicia Griffin is my best friend, and I would never have that without going through the process of being in recovery. I have become a little better husband, a little better, I can hold a job. I could not hold a job. I would get my first paycheck and I would be gone. And it was impossible. I'm gonna shout out, I don't know if she's online or not. I then switched paths. I was the project director for Catskills Addiction Coalition. They gave me an opportunity. And Courtney Hayes and just Karen Driscoll, all of these people, Jane, they loved on me and they supported me, and my life is unrecognizable, you know. I work now, you know, I still, in my mind, excuse the language because I know it's offensive in this, I'm a crackhead and I'm an addict, and that's what I learned from people, from society. Unlovable, never get better. And now I work for People USA on a mobile crisis team in Westchester, and judges are calling me in chambers, and I'm flashing badges to get through here, and I'm going into jail and coming back out, like never. And so I was doing all this stuff. I'm just gonna, and I went from that to I'm on the board for Friends of Recovery Dutchess. I'm on the Dutchess County Subcommittee for Chemical Dependency. I do prison ministry for Dutchess County Probation. And one of those times I met Jolene Darby, and I immediately said, she's the COO for People USA, and I said, nope, that's what I want to be. This person is what I want to be like, and I've developed an amazing relationship with her. She's given me an opportunity to do what I love, completely loyal to her, and I just appreciate everything about her and the company. Most of all, though, coming back here, I just am overwhelmed with love for you guys. I was so excited to be around the people that I love, and just that, forget all the material stuff, like just to have people that I love and that I feel loved by, I'm very, very, very grateful for all of you. And I think that's it. So, everybody have a great day.
Thank you, Dennis. Before we move on to the next speaker, do we have any questions or comments from anyone in the room and or on Zoom?
I will.
Diana.
So I'm interested in the repairing of relationships. So you talk about your wife, your family. What can you share about lessons you learned about how to repair relationships that were perhaps damaged by your drug use?
Okay. Again, I'm just speaking from my own experience. That for me, it was a lot more than stopping active drug use. It had to do with, I didn't know I was incredibly selfish, you know, in my use, and I had to learn that. And for me, it's been a lot of therapy. One thing I probably should have mentioned is I stopped using. For most of the time I stopped using, I was left with an intense amount of emotional pain that I never learned how to deal with without using. So now I do therapy. I never wanted to address my mental health, which is, I'm actually now a mental health peer and a substance use peer. And for me, that's been important. But the most important part, I think, for me is just to be patient. You know, for me, it is unrealistic to think that I did 30 years of damage and that, okay, I stopped using for a year and now everything's going to be great. You know, it's taken some time and a lot of support. Like, I'll call Alicia, because I don't struggle with use anymore, but I struggle with other stuff, and I'll call Alicia if I'm having a really hard time or I'm thinking weird stuff or about to do something that I know I shouldn't do. And all she'll say is like, do you think that's the best idea? And then immediately I don't do it. But so it's a lot. It's support, it's therapy, it's, for me, I do a lot of 12-step meetings. I do a lot of faith-based religious stuff. I'm involved in harm reduction. So yes, you can do both, harm reduction, abstinence. I wish, if I could pray for one thing, can we all just like come together and respect and love all different pathways of recovery, because that's what it's about.
Anybody else? Donnie, is that a hand up or a, okay. Okay. All right, thank you, Dennis. You need it for the Zoom people. Yes. So up next we have John Gibson.
Hi. I'm John. I'm a recovering heroin addict, a recovering alcoholic, and I'm very, very honored and privileged to be here today with you guys. Thank you, Dennis, for sharing. My life is so much different, like's been shared already. What a great day. I woke up today in my own bed, and I say that because that wasn't a given, you know what I mean, when I was using drugs. I woke up a lot of places, and my bed usually wasn't one of them. You know, I was able to take care of my kitty cats. I was able to have a nice egg sandwich today when I got here. Thank you very much, whoever provided that. And wash myself. I have a job that I was able to take a paid vacation day from to be here. My life is just miraculously different than it used to be. I heard something lately in the past couple of weeks. If I take the I out of illness and replace it with we, I have wellness. And that's what I look around the room and I think about today, you know what I mean? So many of us. By the grace of God and with a lot of help, I no longer fight alcoholism and drug addiction on a daily basis. Not every day is a struggle the way that it used to be. I fight it in a different way, like all of us are doing here today. I'm a substance abuse counselor at Able House, which is a transitional house in Saugerties, New York. So every day, you know what I mean, I work with addicts, and that's what helps me. I like that was mentioned already. There's all different paths to recovery. It talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says at the end, of the first 164 pages, I believe it is, and it says, we don't have a monopoly on this, and if you find some way that works for you, we wish you well, we wish you luck, and that's important to me. It talks about in the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous, it talks about how the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is unparalleled. I find that to be true. And working with others, a chapter in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about how one way to ensure, I'm shaking so much. One way to ensure my sobriety is to work with other alcoholics. It talks about that a fellowship will spring up around me, and that's what I've experienced. Alicia and John sitting here, they're like family to me. I've learned, in recovery, I talk about things with other fellows besides like the Yankees and cars and work, and that's why the bonds are so deep. I talk about things that are like really deep and personal and stuff like that, and that's why, the bonds that I've made in recovery would have taken years and years to make. One of the officers mentioned I grew up in the Bronx too. I grew up and I was exposed to a lot of stuff that a kid shouldn't be exposed to at an early age. And I seen what addiction does to a family, just all the harm that it does. And it still wasn't enough of a deterrent. I had to go do it myself. And my clean date is February 2nd of 2019 now. And I'm grateful for each and every day I have. I've had time before. I've had almost 4 years. I've had almost 3 years. And I always picked up because I didn't like how I felt. I wanted the pain to stop. But just for today, I don't feel that way. Life is beautiful these days. I mean, chaos still happens. I've learned that it's my job not to add to the chaos. I've had a lot of help. Treatment works great. I myself didn't choose to go the MAT route, but I sure applaud it. So many of my loved ones use MAT, and anything is better than dead, as we know. You know, if you're breathing, there's a hope, you know, so. Yeah, I got a lot of help to get to this point today, treatment in the area. I've been through quite a few amount of detoxes and rehabs. I attend 12-step meetings. I sponsor people. I take people through the steps. I have a sponsor, and yeah, I couldn't do without you guys, and I'm looking forward to more people not dying from heroin abuse. Thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you, John. You did great. Does anybody have any questions or comments for John?
I have a statement online. And our viewer says, my sister had a tremendous history around substance use, and it took her a long time to get to a place to look back and realize a lot of the hurt that was caused, she apologized and owned. That's how she began to rebuild relationships, and it's worked for us. So I think that's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. Thank you. Anybody else? Donnie?
John, I just want to say thank you for your story, man. It's people like you that help the next guy get sober.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Anybody else? All right, and up next we have John Planhaber.
How's everyone doing? I'm John Plantaber. I'm 30. I had 13 years of active IV, heroin addiction, crack addiction. I will literally do any drug by any means necessary. Now, from what I've learned with addiction is it's very progressive. It starts out easy, everything's fun. Yeah, you get along with a bunch of people, next thing you know, a year down the road you lost a relationship. A year after that, you lost your sneakers. Next thing you know, you're running in someone else's house. And it gets that serious. It is a dangerous disease. It will mentally deteriorate. It will destroy somebody, emotionally, physically. Everything about you will be taken, and it will leave you with nothing, bare-backed, wondering what happened in life. And that's where I had to end. I had to literally end with nothing. There was no shower, there was no food, there was none of that. And it was just me. And I had to really tell myself, what am I supposed to do from this point on? I did 18 rehabs, I've been to jail, and I've tried everything. But where am I failing? Where am I going wrong? And I realized what I was doing was I was trying to dictate what I did because I thought I was superior. My way is the only way. I know so much. That is so wrong. When I started putting myself below everybody else, that's when there started to become a change. I was able to listen to people, understand different things, and then by the grace of God, as everybody has mentioned, God, by the grace of God, I met Kurt Grovenberg at Tabasco Healthcare. And out of every person that I've ever met or worked with, he was the only person to meet me where I was. And that was somebody who had no idea how to live no more. And he literally, step by step, brought me back. Little by little, each week, asked how things were going. It wasn't easy. I didn't just get clean. It took multiple years of relapse, a lot of hard times with my now wife, being a father. You know, it's very difficult. And I can tell you that about my third year in, maybe second year, I didn't know if I even wanted to be with my wife of today because I had no idea who she was. I had no idea who I was. So now I'm free. I'm feeling all these emotions I've never felt, and I have to step up to a plate. I have to understand that I'm raising a child, and I have to understand and have compassion for somebody else besides myself, even though my life was hard. It's only as hard as what you make it, you know? And that's the greatest thing is what I've realized in recovery, it's not how you choose to get better. It doesn't matter if you're in a program, if you're in AA, NA, it does not matter. As long as you share the same common goal, which is to better yourself every day. And that's my biggest thing, is each day I will do better than I did on my last day. And I will make sure of that. And if I follow those principles that I've set and that I really understand, because when I started accepting that my way wasn't correct, and I started understanding the concept of a higher power, I'm going to say, it's humbling. As humans, we forget the humility behind life. To walk by someone, you see somebody ask you for $1, you're like, motherfucker, how many people you asked for $1 today? You give him the $1, not because you believe he's going to do the right thing, because I feel like I did the right thing. And that's what it's about, is what we do for ourselves that will define us. And recovery is major. It's amazing to hear the stigma behind addiction. It is so strong, it's unbelievable, and it's sad. It really is, it's sad, and it's heartbreaking. My daughter, she don't have a lot of friends because of who her father was, not who her father is. And that breaks my heart. It really does. But I truly do know that with this process, and if I follow these principles, everything is going to be all right, because life is so good, as everybody said. We go from a place to not having those clothes or the food to living in a home and a bed, and then we have tendencies to forget where we were. No, show appreciation for everything. When you take a shower, appreciate the hot water. Not everybody has it. It's an emotional thing, but things like this, listening to the police speak, I've been to jail. I didn't have the choice to have the Suboxone at the time when I was there. You grow to not appreciate what you guys do. And that's another flaw, is judging people without understanding what they represent or stand for. So I'm still learning about addiction and how to accept everything in life and understand everybody's place about it. So I want to thank everybody today for letting me speak, and everybody else. And I hope that anybody struggling or has a loved one struggling know that it's not on us. We don't have the control at all. We cannot make them get clean. We cannot convince them to get clean. The only way they will is when they realize that they've had enough. And when they do, their comeback will be bigger than ever. And they will accomplish things that everybody said they wouldn't. And that's the bottom line. We do recover, and we recover loud.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, John. And thank you, John. I feel like all three of you have meant so much to me in different parts of my life and my recovery. And some of you are newer. Some of you have seen the lows of the lows. Others started the journey with me. And I'm so proud of all of you for being up here. Did anybody have any questions or comments for John? Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So they come to our agency, and we have so many programs, and we offer them so much, and we try to. My question is, no matter how much we offer them, it's up to them to accept the help. And I notice sometimes it feels like we're shoving all this help down their throat, and maybe it's too much. So I'm not quite sure if we're doing the right thing, or if we should back off sometimes. Like we need them to get a house, we need to get them housing, we need to get them food and shelter and all these things. And sometimes I feel like it's way too much for them. Like we get all this stuff, and it's still, they're taken back by it. They actually okay, and they will actually stop calling us or stop communicating with us, and it's frustrating for us because we're trying to help everyone, but is there something that maybe we can do that maybe we're too much? Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's something we can do that maybe when they come to us, instead of shoving all our help down their throat and be like, oh, you should do this and you should do that, you should do this, be more of cognitive of like, okay, what do you want to do? Is that more helpful to, I mean, is that helpful, or is it just something that we should keep pushing down their throat? Like, we feel like we should push to do that as an agency.
John?
John, I'm an addict. I believe with that question, and for Kurt Grovenberg, Dr. Grovenberg, he met me where I was at. He knew that I was at a certain point of addiction to where what he said had no relevance in my mind. And he understood that. And like he told me, he said, this is not a 30-day program, this is not a 90-day program. This is a program for the rest of your life. You can work it, or you can choose not to. And that is exactly how he put it to me. But he told me if I worked it, I will notice things that I've never noticed before. And when I do notice those, it will continue to keep me going and moving forward. And now I think that we offer ourselves, addicts, a lot of help in scenarios. And now sometimes we receive the help and then we just let it go. But as Dennis spoke about, is we don't know how to survive in society properly. Not one bit. Our emotional level is through the roof. There is no control. I was diagnosed with many different things, and none of those things happen today, you know? So it's just the time, and I think that's where we all go wrong, is because we try to cram 30 days, you know, 13 years of addiction, you're gonna cure me in 30 days. It's not possible, I'm sorry. You know, 90 days, it's not possible. It's a lifetime. Because the moment I stop practicing the principles is the moment I'll pick up again. And I know when I do, I'll die. It's hard, it's not easy, but people will appreciate the care, and as long as you're helping, there's gonna be more to follow. You might not save the first person, but say you save the next 5. As long as you save somebody, they're gonna help the next.
Go ahead.
Hey, that's a great question, and I love what you just said, John. Thank you. One of the things, this is going to be kind of a plug for peers, but one of the things that I've learned, or that I've come to really appreciate, is that everybody recovers differently. What everybody requires to recover is different, which is really difficult. But that's one of the things that I've come to really try to pay attention to in what I do, is that what works for one person may be exactly the opposite of what works for another person, you know. Just for me, most people, what I'm told to do with people is to meet them where they're at. And that's what I try to do with people. For me personally, I think that was the last thing in the world that the people in my life needed to do for me, because I would use you and manipulate you, and I would never get recovery. So what they did was put a foot up and they did not meet me where I was at. Thank God. Thank God, because that's what I needed. But the difficult part for all of us, I think, is how do we know, without developing a relationship, without taking the time to get to know each individual really well, which way will work for them? And yes, some of that has to be by asking them. And so that's the fascinating thing for me, is that everybody, I wish it was cookie cutter, whatever, take this pill, you're better. But so I think it depends. That's my perspective, is that nobody is the same, and that's kind of cool. And it fosters these great relationships that we develop. So, anybody else?
Did anybody else have a question?
I have one online. So, our guest asks, how is it trying to get housing and recovery?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I can answer that because of the position that I work in. It's pretty difficult these days. If you don't have a mental health diagnosis, it's very slim pickings. It's hard, and that is an obstacle. Like I said, I work in a transitional house at the moment, and people with mental health diagnosis, they get on list. Pretty readily available. It isn't like you get an apartment. And to the last question, God bless you for offering the help, you know what I mean? And I've learned you can eat an elephant, but it's one bite at a time, you know what I mean? So yeah, a little bit, you know, when people get better. But as far as the housing, and that's what I was thinking about your question, and it ties in, yeah, like inevitably you get better, you're not on drugs, your life starts getting better, and yeah, then you don't want to live under a bridge, and you do want housing. You don't want to go back to where you came from. So yeah, I don't have the answers, but I'm glad this came up because we do need more housing available for people in recovery. We don't have anywhere to send people. A lot of times, you know, they'll go back to unhealthy situations, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's pretty scary stuff when you're nearing the end of your tenure in a transitional house and you don't have anywhere to go, you know what I mean? You've changed your life around, you're in treatment, you're this and that, and you don't have a place to live. So yeah, I don't know who's in the room, who's with housing, but we need help. Thank you.
Yep. Question for John. I can't pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. How were the people in your life while in recovery? Were they supportive?
I'm going to answer this one correctly. I was born into addiction. Every member of my family is an active addict, from my mother, father, brother, sister. When I entered recovery, yeah, people supported me, but did they support me? It's hard. You know, it's very hard because we're all selfish in our own ways. My choice to do what I did, it did something different. I have a mother, a brother, a sister who I am doing my hardest to convince that this side is better. And now, if you think it's easy being clean and then having those relationships, it's not. You have to remove yourself and you have to sit back and understand that I have only control of my life. I don't think I had the most support, but I think between my belief of the God of my understanding, the help of Kurt, and my child, I don't need anything else. I don't need any other support because I have everything I need. Truly, I do. So if there are people who feel like they aren't, or it's so hard that they don't have the support, there are so many places that will offer it. NA. There's just so many options. But no, I think for myself it's a little bit different just because of the scenario that I have.
Thank you, John. Thank you for a very open and honest answer. I have some relationships in my life that are just hard, and you have to separate yourself sometimes for your own health, and that's completely understandable. Donnie?
This is for the same John.
Hold on.
Sorry, it's just so people can hear you at home. Thanks.
You're welcome. So, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, brother. It is a little personal. Me and you have some similar stories in our background. I, too, suffer from our children suffering for some of our past mistakes. How do you deal with, because we know it's not the child of our friend, our child's friend, that is coming up with some of the things they say. How do you deal with the parents or however it's being brought to that child without taking up our old ways and just kicking in the door? And what the hell did you say to my child?
Thank you,
And again, this is where I'm different than most people. My 9-year-old knows everything her father's been through. She's 9 years old and she knows what drug addiction is. And that is the bottom line. She will always know what it is, and I will always be honest with her. So, scenario, for instance, if there is a situation of that manner, you know, as in birthday parties she hasn't been able to go to, I allow them to believe and think of me what they must, because that is not my opinion. I know what I am doing is right. Eventually, they will know what I'm doing is right. So that's just another thing, as in time, all things change. So it's one of those things where you have to really stay grounded, remember who you are as a person and what our objective is, and know that I will not steer from that for anything.
What do you say to your child, you know, when they're crying because they can't go?
Well, in that scenario, it's a little bit different. You know, I would coddle my daughter. Half of her life I wasn't there. When I re-entered her life, it was not easy. Dad did not get a hug. I did not get a good night, and I did not get a good morning. And that is the truth. My daughter felt the type of way, and I knew she did. And now what was I going to do to change that? The only thing I can do is be a father, not go to jail again, not leave the house again. And then in time, a couple years down the road, my daughter cannot get enough of me. She doesn't want to leave my side. Sad to say, I am one of my daughter's best friends. We ride bikes together. We run together. She has anything she needs, she asks Dad, and it wasn't always that way. But she realizes now that Dad isn't the same dad. You know, she might understand that I went through addiction, but she doesn't realize on why I looked the way I did. Why was I so unhealthy? Because that isn't for 9 yet, you know? So it just comes a thing where you have to accept that you have to just keep moving forward, and in time, your children will understand as long as you're there in the future, you know?
Sorry. Like I said, we have a lot of similarities. My brother also is still actively using. I've tried to approach the conversation. However, I don't think it's going the way I want it to go, which is a problem. I'm trying to meet him where he's at, but it's hard because it is family. And when you have such an attachment, you more want to wring their neck just to get them right. Do you have any ideas on how I can better approach him to try to get him some help?
You don't approach him at all. And that's something that I'm just learning now. Honestly, I am. I am so invested in changing a generational curse that I call it. And you know what? Sometimes I get caught up in it and I forget about me. If I'm not sober, how can I help anybody? I can't, because I can't help me. So, when you come to a point and you're starting to question yourself on, damn, I want to strangle you, or why are you not getting it? I think that's time to remove yourself. Because sometimes when you get caught up, you don't realize that when you're trying to help somebody, they're sinking your ship. You know, sometimes they pull your plug faster than you think, because it's the emotions that lead us back to addiction. The feelings, the discomfort, the why is it not going my way? Those are the most deadly aspects, I believe. And those are the ones we got to be the most aware of. Because if I forget that, and I try to give everything that I have here for the people that I love, I will never be there for them. And I know that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I think one thing I just wanted to say really quickly as you were speaking, it brought to my mind something that we had heard a while back, and like I fell in love with the term. But between you talking about your family and then your daughter, and I can relate to it with my oldest son who had been through the whole, shabil with me there, generational recovery. And I love that term. I think I think it may have been one of the same days as that interview that like we heard something similar and I was like, I love that. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to take it. But thank you so much, you guys, for coming up and sharing.
Thank you all very much, and they got their tree juice already. We're about to break for lunch, but before we do,